travel by California out here, fighting the fog along the Mendocino coast. If you've seen our videos on Mount Tam or Old Kaz, you'll know how cold and soupy it is right against the ocean. Today, I hope to cut inland towards the Jackson Demonstration Forest and then make it back along the surf line along Highway 1. Now, I seem to have lost where the camera is in all this fog, but let's roll. Mendocino County's coastline is dotted with the occasional settlement, bike tourists, and changes in weather. Fort Bragg is the largest town along it in the county, founded in 1857, named after Braxton Bragg, who went on to become a general in the Confederacy, which may not keep this gravel guide evergreen. The Union Lumber Company and the redwood industry has left the largest imprint on this town since the late 19th century, with one of the former owners' home now hosting a history museum. Its famous skunk train still serves many tourists, while the grounds of the mill looks like a shuttered military base. I would cringe to think if I didn't stop at one of my favorite breweries, with North Coast Brewing Company offering one of my favorite lineups with some worthy pub fare as well. I don't normally eat fish and chips, but when in Rome. I started out of downtown, planning to follow the bookends of the Grasshopper series Jackson Forest Loop. But maybe I overlooked asking Mig for some details. Okay, lesson learned. There's a gate that's locked. I drove up 500 miles for this. Let's see how I can salvage this ride. Fortunately, I was able to audible from my original route to this, and ultimately got in 35 miles with a fair amount of climbing to boot. I headed down Highway 1, which was far more active than any part of my drive up from Jenner, where space was narrow. Navigating briefly on some quieter roads before having to return back while passing picturesque Jug Handle Beach to my right. Another great option that came up was skirting off into the small town of Caspar, which evolved under a similar timeline with the logging industry to Fort Bragg, but on a more rural scale. Crossing the active highway, it was a short stretch on Fern Creek Road before turning towards the dirt I would soon meet on Orchard Logging Road. Okay, two choices. I could take Casper or Casper. While it was efficiently straight, I was looking forward to more variety and less washboard later on, while coming across speed humps on dirt was a first. It was a good sign to come up on some other riders, including a helpful kiosk. But pro tip, when coming up on useful maps, remember to snap a pic on your phone for reference before focusing on stock footage. I know what you're thinking. What could go wrong? The Jackson State Demonstration Forest is the largest of its kind in California, which was purchased from the logging industry in 1947, now providing research for forest management techniques. Entering through the gate, it did feel like being in a lab of sorts, with the roads and trees being well curated and a lot of fun zipping down. It's really interesting to see the trees. They're right by the wire. They're totally covered in moss. It's a different type of density. It took me a little while to pick up on. I had a general idea of where I was headed, wanting to make it out to Little Lake Road. But coming up on these three options at once, without excelling and taking good mental notes, I chose the one on the right that looked more direct. I wasn't even worried, though I hadn't seen anyone, and I should have been creeped out by this empty government vehicle in an X-Files type of way. My eyebrows heightened on this fun, yet committing downhill, which I thought was leading me in the wrong y-axis direction, being affirmed by another Agent Scully marking a dead end.
Captain Backtrack, reporting for duty.
Returning to the intersection, and now choosing the middle option felt right, because it matched my painful memory that it's about a mile at 10% to start from here. Even with a brief reprieve, the vest finally came unzipped for the next incline, allowing me at these speeds to notice how orderly the forest looks, but still gaining elevation, but not views. The gate confirmed the turn off onto Little Lake Road, and I was ready for a little downhill payback. Thank you very much. I did have to keep an eye out for possible oncoming traffic, and there were a couple of pitches to address, but otherwise I enjoyed the flow. The observatory trail might have been a missed opportunity for single track fun, but I was glad to adventure on, as it was easy to stay on track. Coming up on the first major intersection, I could have continued on to the actual town of Mendocino with its farm-like atmosphere, but I visited earlier and instead followed numerology.
Well, 409 seems to be an effective cleaner. Let's go.
This was another straightforward dirt road with the little signs of life, eventually transitioning to pavement, coming out of the forest lands and towards Highway 1. I crossed, instead of turning back, heading down by the charming Caspar Beach with other intentions in mind. Coming onto the grounds of the Cabrillo Lighthouse, it's a good thing to be on a bike because it's a far walk from the parking lot. It's amazing to think of all the lighthouses needed, along with the housing and other resources from over 100 years ago to protect sailors from this rugged coast. But maybe the views themselves made this job easier. I headed back towards town on the highway, keeping a good pace to stay with traffic, still noting some eclectic homes along the way. Entering back in, most drivers might miss the Noyo Harbor down below, but my focus was returning to the central part of town because did I mention the North Coast Brewery was here? Well, sometimes things work out despite what you're doing, but that's probably not good advice for a ride. Luckily, there was enough trails to flounder around that I could have made a ton of gravel guides, which means I would love to come back. Anyways, you can support us either on Patreon or by getting yourself some great GBC gear. And check out our other gravel guides, which are probably even more successful than this one, so you can learn more about the state of dirt.